Welcome back, my dear listeners. This is Jimmy Lau, and you are listening to episode 15 of the iSquaredPodcast, where we discuss, dissect, and dive into the abstract and yet riveting realms of philosophy, spirituality, and the human mind. Welcome to those joining us for the first time, and a warm welcome back to our regular listeners. As always, we appreciate your continuous support. Today, we will be diving deep into one of the most intriguing triads of concepts that have puzzled philosophers, scholars, and thinkers for millennia: karma, determinism, and free will. Three words you may have heard, read, or even pondered over at times. Now, you might be wondering, why choose such a topic? Well, simply because the understanding and interpretation of these three concepts significantly influence our perceptions, behaviors, and decisions. An exploration of these concepts bears the potential to change the way we see and navigate our lives. The beauty of it, there is no absolute right or wrong in these realms, just different perspectives. And that is the core essence of today's discussions. Before we dive into the deep end, I would like to invite each and every one of you to leave us a message on social media with the hashtag iSquaredPodcast and hashtag iSquaredKarma, and let us know what you think. Coming up, we will dive right into the realm of karma. So buckle up, folks. The ride into your consciousness begins after the break. Alright, let's dive right in. The first concept we looked into today is karma. Karma, an ancient concept stemming from diverse cultures, carries different connotations, but I am particularly drawn to the original Hindu interpretation. Karma simply means action. It is related to the concept of the arrow of time, the irreversible flow from the past to future, and the law of cause and effect, actions triggered by antecedent conditions. These conditions, however transient in nature, are always in a chain, always consecutive. What you do now, this very moment, links directly to what will happen next. Each moment is a product of the previous ones and becomes the seed for future moments. It is like a ripple in a pond, started by a tiny pebble. The ripple represents your karma, the effect spreading out, reaching places the pebble couldn't have on its own. Now, many of us are more familiar with the Buddhist interpretation of karma, the moral cycle of cause and effect, the belief that what goes around comes around. While I respect this perspective, I don't necessarily subscribe to it fully. The Buddhists believe that whatever you do, a certain consequence will come back to you. But when does it happen? It can be immediate. It can be many years later. In some cases, it can be even many generations later. And that part is where I find it a little troubling to believe. On the contrary, I particularly appreciate the original Hindu notion of karma, seen as the law of cause and effect. It captures the essence of life's continuity. Despite the transient nature of life's moments, it resonates with Albert Einstein's concept of time, where he says the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Understanding the cause and effect principle has fundamental implications. It underscores that nothing happens in isolation. Every action, every cause has an effect. In life, every decision made, every step taken is thus of crucial importance. We will explore more about how this principle, this karma, relates to determinism and free will. But before we get there, let's take some time to reflect. How can understanding this perspective of karma influence our actions? How does it affect our decision making? Now, let's straddle that bridge connecting the idea of karma with the theory of determinism. For some, determinism might be akin to surrendering control, the idea that every event, every action, including human cognition, behavior, decision, have antecedent causes. It is a domino effect, one leading to the next, all meticulously determined by the laws of nature out of our immediate control. Some argue that it nullifies the concept of free will. After all, how can we claim freedom of action if everything is preordained or influenced by factors beyond our control? I remember a thought that particularly struck me and bolstered my views on determinism. Something we seldom ponder, but which significantly influences our lives, is where we are born, the country, the culture, the socio-economic condition, our parents. We don't get to decide any of this, yet it inevitably shapes our life's trajectory, our beliefs, our values, even our thoughts. For example, if I had been born in another country, in a completely different setting, with different parents, I might not be sitting here, standing here, and hosting this podcast. My views, my opinions, my career, everything might have been dramatically different. This is a basic level example of determinism at play in our lives. Understanding these deterministic factors doesn't negate our personal experiences, but rather they help us to interpret and contextualize them. Determinism thus is not disempowering, but rather a tool for understanding, forgiveness, and empathy. However, it is crucial to discuss this within the confines of ethics and personal responsibility. Though determinism does play a crucial role, it does not absolve one from responsibility for their actions. These are reflections and realizations that help us navigate through our successes, our failures, our relationships, and most importantly, modify the way we perceive others. But does this mean we are completely at the mercy of fate? Are we but pawns on the chessboard of life? Or do we still hold some level of control? This brings us to our next often debated concept, which some see as conflicting, and others see as coexisting with determinism. Yes, you guessed right, we are talking about free will. Now, here's where theory splits paths, where the water gets a tad murky. Free will, the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate, the ability to act at one's own discretion. It is the feeling that you are holding the reins, that you are the author of your own story. But can such a volitional construct coexist with deterministic principles? This is indeed a contentious topic where Eastern and Western philosophies part ways. The Eastern philosophical viewpoint leans more towards compatibilism, That is to say, free will and determinism coexist. The Eastern introspective traditions have long embraced the coexistence of destiny or karma and free will. Destiny may lay down the path, but we can choose how to tread it. It is like a game where the board is set, rules defined, yet the moves we make, the strategies we adopt, are based on free will. Consider this metaphor of a train journey. Each of us is on a specific train. Let's call this train karma. Now, this train is predestined to go from one station to another. This is the deterministic aspect. However, within this train, we are free to move about, to change seats, to choose who to converse with, to decide what to do during the journey. This is our free will. This metaphor is an oversimplification of deep, complex ideas, but it gives us a starting point to think about how free will might coexist with determinism. It tells us we may not have control over the universal causes and effects, but we can control our responses to them, our actions within the constraints that are set for us. Now, I came across a humbling perspective when I was reading Robert Sapolsky's latest book titled Determined. In his thought-provoking exploration, Sapolsky explains that our feeling of free will might be more illusion than fact, a beautifully crafted mirage by our conscious mind. Imagine a conjurer's trick where you get to choose a card from a deck. It feels like you have made a free will choice, doesn't it? But the reality is, the magician controlled the conditions and subtly manipulated your free choice. A crude metaphor, but it echoes Sapolsky's argument that our conscious mind's feeling of autonomy might just be the result of unconscious processes. Understand this, though. It is not about giving in to a nihilistic approach to life. The aim is not to shun responsibility or to invite apathy towards growth and pursuit. Quite the contrary. Understanding the interplay of determinism and free will equips us with the mindset to approach life with more compassion, to accept our strengths along with our limitations. Is this to say that we are prisoners of our own minds, confined by neural pathways and biochemistry? Not necessarily. Even Sapolsky agrees that understanding these facets doesn't dissolve the significant role of ethics, standards, and social responsibility. However, the acknowledgement of this deterministic bias in our free-willed choices might help us approach life and people with more understanding, more humility, while simultaneously embracing the uncertainty and mystery that makes life so fascinating and terrifyingly beautiful. With an understanding of karma, determinism, and free will in our repository, we can start viewing their interconnected role in shaping our lives, not as isolated pillars, but as a web, influencing our decision making, our judgment, and our behavior. Think about this. Every daily decision, whether it is as trivial as choosing your clothes or as critical as deciding on a major career change, these are moments when karma and determinism intersect with free will. Understanding this web can help us navigate complexities in our life with more awareness and empathy. Consider a situation where you need to critique someone's work. It could be a friend, a family member, or a coworker. Often, our gut reaction would be to criticize harshly or dismiss the effort entirely if it doesn't meet our expectations. This is an instinctual reaction, partially shaped by our deterministic factors, our upbringing, past experiences, and our inherent personality traits. Knowing that our reactions are predetermined can help us pause, reconsider our approach before we act. It allows us a moment to choose a response guided by constructive feedback rather than an outright critique. Additionally, acknowledging that the other person's work is influenced by their own determinism might temper our judgment with empathy and understanding. It is also important to understand that acknowledging determinism in any failure or setback does not mean escaping from responsibility. Instead, it encourages a shift in perspective, from blame to understanding, from shame to learning. Essentially, the intermingling of these concepts can serve as a compass, pointing us towards patience, empathy, and kindness, not just towards others, but also towards ourselves. It is like looking at life through a new lens that allows for second chances, for growth, for lasting change. As we near the end of our exploration today, we are left with a provocative question. Does free will truly exist, or is it just a well-crafted illusion perpetrated by our consciousness? It is a question that has sparked countless debates, has driven thinkers to madness, and has procured no definitive answers. We have thinkers, philosophers, and scientists who completely deny the existence of free will, robustly arguing that every action, every thought is the determinable outcome of an infinitely complex yet defined and sequential chain of events. They propose that everything we do, from tying our shoelaces to our life-defining choices, arises from cause and effect sequences that we cannot control. Contrarily, we have those who steadfastly affirm the existence of free will, arguing that while environment and history surely influence us, we still retain agency over our actions and thoughts. They argue that true randomness and non-deterministic aspects exist in the universe, asserting that humans indeed have the power of autonomous action. Then we have the compatibilists, who propose that free will and determinism are not mutually exclusive, but may coexist in harmony. Personally, I lean towards the deterministic worldview, a perspective imprinted in my mind by our birth's randomness, alluding to the impossibility of the concept of free will. Where do you stand in this captivating controversy, my dear listeners? What is your narrative on karma, determinism, and free will? Do you regard destiny and free will as sworn enemies, or as amicable allies? And most importantly, does an understanding of these concepts influence the way you navigate your world, the way you make decisions, approach failure, attribute blame, extend understanding, or judge others? We are eager to hear about your experiences and perspectives. Share your thoughts using our official hashtags iSquaredPodcast and hashtag iSquaredKarma, hashtag determinism. As we wrap up today's mind-nudging episode, here are the significant touch points we traversed. Karma, the original Hindu concept as the arrow of time highlighting cause and effect. Determinism, the belief that all events are predetermined by previously existing causes. And free will, the ability to act on one's discretion and its intriguing and complex coexistence or conflict with karma and determinism. Understanding these concepts does more than just add to our intellectual reservoir. They provide us a unique lens to view life. When we view life's occurrences through the lens of karma, we realize that nothing happens in isolation. Every action is an effect of a cause and then becomes the cause for future effects. When we observe life from the perspective of determinism, we realize that much of our lives, starting from where and when we are born, is governed by factors beyond our control. This realization is not to be used as an excuse for inaction, but rather a provocation towards action tempered with understanding, patience, and acceptance. The idea of free will, shadowed by deterministic principles, unravels both the incredible power and simultaneous illusion of control we believe we possess over our actions. It is a humbling thought that instills in us a sense of empathy and humility in our interactions and judgments. The interplay of karma, determinism, and free will shapes our perception, enhances our understanding, helps us navigate blame, and interpret responsibility. Understanding these concepts, acknowledging their limitations and powers, can encourage us to approach life, others, and ourselves with more compassion, kindness, and realism. It is important to remember that these concepts, just like life, are not black and white, but a palette with varied shades of interpretations. I am sure our discussion today nudged your mind towards new perspectives or reinforced your understanding. Either way, I would love to hear what you think. Once again, I invite you to join the conversation. Share your thoughts and understanding using hashtag iSquaredPodcast and hashtag iSquaredKarma on social media. Until next time, this is your host Jimmy Lau signing off. May your days be filled with happiness and wonders, and may you dance in the symphony of impermanence.